It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Let's test out this microphone. I might have to say that again. If anybody is listening at this point, please let me know if the audio is coming through. So, once again, please let me know if the audio is coming through. This is Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China, attempting a live stream from the People's Republic of China. So, if you can hear you hear me? James is watching, EMPDDD is watching. Guys, can you hear what I'm saying? Is the microphone attached properly? Are all the buttons pushed in the correct order? Loud and clear, great. Loud and clear, but bruzzy. I'm not sure what that means. Let's see. Does that mean it's like a fuzzy sound going on here? We could make some adjustments. Sounds good? Okay. Great. Sounds like the audio is coming through. Do I like oatmeal? I eat oatmeal almost every single day. Do I like it? It's okay. It works. It gives me the results that I want. So, this is another live Q&A from Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome, welcome one, welcome all. So, if you are new to these live Q&As, it's pretty simple. Ask questions and I'll give you answers. Ask me anything. Sounds a little hissy on the SS. I don't know what SS means, but sounds like you're getting some hissy feedback. Huh. Maybe I need to change the batteries on this microphone. I try these with a few different types of microphone technology, and yeah. It sounds a little hissy. Let me try something. Hold on, one moment. Before we get into the Q&As, let's see here. Testing, testing. How does the audio sound now? Any different? Testing, testing. Does the audio sound different now? Please let me know. Better or worse? Better or worse? Please let me know. Worse, all right. Let's make one more adjustment. Worse now, definitely. Okay. Testing, does the audio sound better or worse now? I've just made another adjustment. Please let me know, does the audio sound better or worse? Sounds like I was in a box, okay. Go back, okay, I've gone back the way it was. Better? Okay, good. Good. Well, so let's officially start this Q&A. Once again, welcome to this edition of Q&A with the Coach. I'm Ramsey Dewey. I'm a mixed martial arts coach here in Shanghai, China. I've been coaching the sport of mixed martial arts for about 15 years now. If you are new to the channel, if you have questions about combat sports or whatever, please let me know. Have you ever thought about moving out of China? Eventually, but not today. Not today, friends. What else do we have? Sweet, we got a super chat from some guy. I hope this helps you out, your friend some guy. Well, thank you, some guy. Not even a question, just a donation. Much appreciated. My thoughts on keto. You know, I did a whole video on various fad diets, ketogenic diets, short-term fasting, long-term fasting, intermittent fasting, vegan diets, etc. And I specifically tried out all of these diets for a certain period of time, specifically so I could speak from experience and not just tell you what I think from an intellectual perspective. So I would strongly recommend go check that video out. Do I speak Chinese? Man, I get asked this question constantly every time I do one of these Q&As. My Chinese is terrible. I speak very little Chinese. But, yeah. Enough to get by, if you will. Hellraiser02 says he's been into martial arts and fighting games for a while. He says, if I'm applying lessons from fighting games, conditioning and anticipation in real sparring, am I doing it wrong? Well, man, fighting games have changed a lot in the last 20 years, so maybe. I suppose that depends on what you're doing. There are some strategies which are pretty universal across the board with competitive sports, games, etc., that can definitely translate into combat sports and others that won't. So it really depends on what you're doing there. You mentioned condition. I assume you mean like conditioning or programming your opponent to respond or think a certain way. Sure, absolutely. One of my most recent videos was all about that. Go check it out. Washington Irving says, how can I find a stance that suits me best? Mobility, balance, speed. I'm about 200 pounds, 6 feet tall. Don't be married to a single stance, friends. If you are standing like a statue in a single stance, it's just not, it's simply not how a dynamic fight works. It's not. Fighting is dynamic. Each stance has a very specific application, just like each technique has a very specific application. For example, if you are in a side stance, that is a stance where you would use techniques like a Philly shell or a side kick or a turning back kick. There are setups for spinning hook kicks, flicker jabs, quick in and out type of movement, but that's not a one-size-fits-all stance or a one-occasion-fits-all stance either. For example, as soon as you start dealing with leg kicks at the toe-to-toe range, that's not a good stance anymore. You've got to change that. You get into a defensive boxing stance or a Muay Thai stance, an English boxing stance, one of these with your weight on the back leg. This is great in certain ranges of combat, and it's absolutely terrible when somebody shoots in on your legs and attempts a takedown. And if you get into a deep, low wrestling stance, okay, this is great in certain occasions. For example, when somebody shoots in on your legs, you're nice and low, and it's absolutely terrible in other situations. So, what do you do about that? You change your stance as the circumstances require. Got a whole video about that too. Go check it out. There's no need to be married to a single stance. Change it up. Is soccer big in China? I mean, soccer's big in most parts of the world. It's moderately popular here, I guess. A moron question. What's a moron question? How do I have more aggression? I try to self-teach myself this. I kind of lack immediate reaction when something happens. I don't want to, should I do it or no? Okay, you got to develop some confidence in your technique, man. And that's going to come. Important changes don't happen quickly. It takes years. Think about building muscles, for example. That takes years. It's not 3 easy steps. It's not I packed on 50 pounds of muscle in 30 days. No, that simply doesn't happen. And it's the same thing with changing your mindset and your mentality in fighting, changing from a guy who's, you know, running away and flinching to an effectively aggressive cage fighter. It takes time. I've been planning a video for some time about my friend and my student, Chi. He's been featured in a couple of my videos. He just recently received his blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And a couple of years ago when he started training, he was a big-time flincher. You'd look at this guy and you'd be like, this guy's absolutely worthless in a fight. And sure, back then, like all beginners, he was. But you know what he did? He got out there and trained, and he did it every day, and he did it consistently. And he did something really important that I didn't even have to tell him to do, and this is one of the most important things you can do. Film yourself. Take video of yourself while you train, while you spar, and then watch it. And then you are automatically going to be your own worst critic, and you are going to give yourself all the auto-corrections that you need. More so than any amount of coaches screaming at you about what you're doing wrong will ever do. It's a long-term process, and again, it took my friend Chi a long time to overcome that, that flinchy, non-aggressive sort of fight mentality to change his game, and there's no quick fix. I know we go to YouTube and we get mindlessly attracted like moths to a flame to those videos with the clickbaity titles that promise us quick changes and easy fixes. But it's not the truth, man. It's a lie. When I tell you guys, get out there and train, right? It's not just a cute little tagline. It's the truth. It's what I want you to do. It's what I sincerely, in my heart of hearts, want you to do. I don't say that to try to make money. I don't say that to try to get popular. I say that because it's the truth. You got to get out there and train, man. And you got to do it consistently for many years. But you're here for specific answers, so let's get some specific questions. Yeah, just like Scott McGregor says, don't be embarrassed about being bad at something. It takes time. That's the truth, my friend Scott. It's the truth. Why do few people use hammer fists? Well, hammer fists have very specific applications. Very specific applications. As Stephen mentioned in the comments there, they're commonly seen and used in ground and pound. You watch MMA fights. Yeah, if you're sitting on top of the guy, if you're straddling the guy, mounting the guy, side mounting the guy, hammer fists are one of the best weapons. You've got the best use of leverage and distance for a hammer fist in that position. In the stand-up game, it's very different. Radically different. Because now boxing techniques, long-range kicking, clinch fighting with knees and elbows and all of this stuff is simply going to be a better weapon. Now, oh sweet, Jesse Enkamp is in the chat. Welcome! Welcome to the Karate Nerd. Thanks for joining. But yeah, stand-up applications of a hammer fist, there are a few I would mention right away. A really big, obvious, glaring one is a spinning back fist. You can change that to a spinning hammer fist. Our friend Quan Kicker made an excellent video about using a hammer fist instead of a back fist when you do that spinning attack, specifically to protect your elbow. Like, you can easily armbar yourself doing a spinning back fist if you get too close and, jam it on the elbow instead of getting the fist. A back fist solves a lot of problems with that. Now, the other thing that's a lot less obvious, and you'll see this if you work a speed bag, and I know a lot of people who don't understand speed bag technique, and they don't understand cross frames, and they don't understand hand fighting, will immediately dismiss a speed bag and say, "Oh, that's useless. You don't box like this." No, you don't throw punches like this, because these are not punches. These are hand fighting applications. These are frames. So the cross frame, right? If you look at the most basic speed bag pattern, and I've got a whole playlist of videos about this, right? Make a cross frame and we make contact with the hammer fist. And what are we contacting with? The arms, not the head, the arms. The other guy has his guard up here, vertical. And we make a cross frame here, horizontal. You might notice on a speed bag your arms are like this if you're doing that basic block punch pattern. Cross frame, hook. Cross frame, hook. In both of these applications of that movement, the arms will be horizontal rather than vertical. But their arm is like this, our arm is like this, and we make a cross frame. What does that mean? It means they can't move that arm until that frame is gone. And we use that to make an angle, to move around them, to shift that arm out of the way, and create an opening for a strike. So it's not a strike per se, it's not even a defensive movement or a block, in spite of the fact that I sometimes call it a block. It is making a frame so you can very quickly move around the guy, make an opening, and hit him. So that is a very simple but hard to explain concept of using a hammer fist in a stand-up fight. But yeah, I've got a whole playlist. It's called something like Speed Bag and Double End Bag Stuff. Go check that out. We'll go over that in explicit detail. So we got more questions. When is the face reveal? When am I gonna peel off this fake mask I'm wearing and show you guys my lizard person body underneath, my reptilian form? Maybe later, guys. Maybe if we got enough super chats, we'll do that. So, who's my favorite boxer? Jack Dempsey? Do you have to ask? Welcome to the channel, man. I talk about this all the time. Jack Dempsey is my favorite boxer of all time. Of all time. and for a lot of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is his excellent book that I'm always pimping out on this channel, and you can read it for free online. Championship Fighting, aggressive, no, explosive punching and aggressive defense. It's awesome. Go read it. Go do yourself a favor and level up your stand-up fighting. Can you practice judo without a partner? A little bit. You can do certain judo drills without a partner, but if you don't know anything about judo, you won't have the context of experience to really get anything out of those drills. If you are already an experienced judoka, then you can definitely get a lot out of shadow wrestling drills and drills where you drape a rope or a cord or a, what do you call it, a bungee cord, stretchy rubber band over a post, and then practice throws and stuff. But if you but if you don't have the context of experience, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you. So with grappling, read the all fighting, you do need a partner. Oh, sweet, we got a super chat starting the face reveal fund from Sagat Master 4. Thank you. $5 into that face reveal fund. Well, I love it. Okay. What are my thoughts on most martial artists denying strength training? I used to do this in karate. Um, yeah, I don't know if I would say most, but back in the day, this definitely was the case. A huge percentage of martial artists poo-pooed strength training, which is kind of silly because if you look back at like the old school karate masters, those guys did weight training. Look at the old school kung fu guys. Those guys did weight training. They had their own special weights, like these ancient Chinese kettlebell-like devices that they used. And I mean, even the Shaolin monks, man, those guys are always doing strength training. I mean, that's their jam. So it's very weird that modern traditional martial artists who stem from these styles, from these lineages, are essentially saying, no, no, no. Probably because they heard, some dude say, it's not about strength, it's about an intelligent application of technique, and that's just taken way out of context to mean strength is useless, don't even work on it. Okay, we got a super chat from EMPDDD. If a champ level featherweight retaining all skills and experience were to start over at the bottom of the heavyweight division, how far could they make it? Are we talking about open weight fights? Like if we took whoever, I don't know who's the current featherweight champ in the UFC, but let's say we take that guy and we put him in the heavyweight division of the UFC against guys who in excess of 265 pounds who were cutting down to get to 265. How far could he make it? He gets squished pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, think about it. We've got professional level fighters in the featherweight division. They're jiu-jitsu black belts. They're experts, strikers. They're awesome fighters. And then they're fighting guys who weigh 120 pounds in them. Essentially with the same skill set, just more weight, more strength, more size, more explosion. Yeah, that's not going to work out. Simply not. Sweet. Super chat from Habersham25. I think he's contributing to the face reveal fund there. No questions. Appreciate it. Cosmo. No. ¿Cómo se dice eso? Spanish name. ¿Cómo se dice eso says, did you ever fight in MMA without having trained? MMA specifically, if so, what are your thoughts? Is it dangerous? Yes and yes. Yeah. Do MMA fights. I went in there with zero MMA training. I never grappled before, never wrestled, never did jiu-jitsu. Experience was taekwondo, karate, capoeira, kickboxing, all striking art. And I go in MMA fight. I won. I won. Why? Because I was fighting a guy who was more ill prepared than I was on that occasion. I fought a guy who talked a big game, and I broke my foot. Well, he broke my foot. He lifted me up and slammed me, and I tried to land on my feet. I landed on my foot. broke one of my metatarsals, and managed to stand up under the influence of adrenaline, clinched up with him, threw some liver shots, which dropped him. He dropped onto his knees, clutching his liver, because those things suck, and he was not prepared for that contingency. I grabbed him in a front headlock and kept punching him until he tapped and the referee stopped the fight. If you look up my Sherdog record, it's recorded as a finish, a submission via guillotine choke. I had no idea what a guillotine choke was. I was not performing a guillotine choke. I had a goofy front headlock, and it was a tap to liver shots. Now, after that experience, winning your first MMA fight with zero MMA experience and zero MMA specific training is a really bad thing, because it gives you some very real, unrealistic ideas. It makes you start to think, well, hey, that wasn't too bad. If I can do that with no sport-specific training, I'm basically the best guy in the world. So I go into another fight, and I got my butt kicked badly, and it could have been a lot worse. A lot worse. But it was an eye-opener, like, holy crap, you actually need to train to this sport to beat guys, because there are levels to this game, right? There are levels to the game. So, yes, I went into an MMA fight unprepared. I got very lucky, walking out of there with simply a broken foot and a win. But, man, it could be so much worse. So, yeah, get out there and train. Never, ever, ever forget that, friends. Train for the sport you intend to compete in. MMA is very importantly different from kickboxing or karate or taekwondo or any of those things. And I'm constantly asked, and I probably missed 10,000 questions so far from people saying, how do you think a Lethwei fighter would do an MMA? How do you think a karate fighter would do an MMA, etc., etc.? And we've seen thousands of examples of these contingencies playing out in real life. And the fact of the matter is, if you want any real staying power in a specific sport, you got to train in that specific sport. How do you defend against a jumping double 12 to 6 elbow? This is a Muay Boran technique. You'll see it in traditional Muay Thai. The guy jumps up, kind of climbs on you like a monkey, drops down with two elbows or one elbow. How do you defend against that? Don't be in position to let that happen to you, pretty much. So, yeah. If you wanted to learn to defend a technique, learn to use that technique first of all and spend time training and sparring with people who frequently use those techniques. So if you never spar with a guy who does the flying uh, traditional Muay Thai downward elbow, you're never going to learn to defend it. Ever. And if you train with a bunch of guys who do that, then great, you'll know exactly how to position yourself. I had the experience of training with a lot of really good Russian Sambo fighters, Ukrainian Sambo fighters from Kazakhstan and all these other countries ending with Stan, and they're really good. If you've seen Khabib and these other dudes in the UFC, you probably have an idea, hey, guys from that part of the world are pretty good at grappling and Sambo and submission stuff. And it's true. It's not just Khabib. It's a whole culture of guys like that. So I spent a lot of time training with these guys, and one thing they always do if you're not prepared for it is the straight ankle lock. They'll just jump on that from all kinds of crazy angles. And if you're not watching your feet, they will take them. And so after several years of training with these guys, I got really, really adept at defending the straight ankle lock and performing the straight ankle lock. And so then I go back to the USA for a visit for a couple of weeks, and I train at some jiu-jitsu gyms there, and I'm rolling with this guy, and he's trying to straight ankle lock me, and I'm just like brushing it off casually. Then I straight ankle lock him, and afterward he's like, no way, no way, I'm the leg lock guy here at this gym, and you just leg locked me, that's impossible. Like, wait, you're the leg lock guy, singular? Nobody else here does leg locks? He's like, yeah, just me. I'm like, well, that's why. That's why. If you're the only one there doing the technique, you're never going to learn to defend it. And you're never really going to learn to be proficient at doing it. You'll catch the noobs, but you'll never get anybody good. Man, I've got a recent video that I made, hasn't been published yet, but It's about the arm-in guillotine choke and how for 15 years I did it wrong, and I never tapped anyone good with it. I would tap people who sucked at jiu-jitsu with this move, but I never tapped anyone good with it. And this video is about the changes that I made to ensure that that move was a, not just something I could catch lazy white belts with, but something that would actually work at a high level. And the difference, but it's huge. Oh, sweet, we got some super chats. Dr. Sick, thank you very much. And, oh wow, Grandmaster Jesse from Mexican Martial Arts is in the house and left a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. He says, what is your favorite martial arts movie? And does it have helicopter kicks? Oh, wow, what is my favorite martial arts movie? Oh, there are so many to choose from, and so many of them do have helicopter kicks. You know, I love the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies with the helicopter kicks. They are great. I do love Bloodsport. It's such a fascinating movie, especially now knowing, you know, all the crazy stuff on the internet about Frank Dukes. But my favorite martial arts movie of all time has always been and still is the Fists of Fury. In some countries, it's called The Chinese Connection, and I know this is confusing, so let's be very clear about which Bruce Lee movie I'm talking about, okay? Because in one country, in some countries, it's called The Chinese Connection. In other countries, it's called Fist of Fury. And in other countries, they have the opposite name. It's the one that happens in Shanghai, China. It's not filmed in Shanghai, China, but the story takes place there. And Bruce plays a character named Chen, and he's training at the, oh, what's it called? It's an actual real school here in Shanghai, and it's still here. And I still need to take you guys on a tour there. So hopefully they let me in with a camera. Anyway, his school gets, this is during the Japanese occupation of Shanghai. Well, Shanghai was kind of split up into a bunch of different factions. There was the French concession, there was like the Japanese concession, anyway, so there's a huge Japanese presence in Shanghai, and there's this rival karate school with some. We watched this movie recently. Well, now that I fix this, man. She needs to learn her cultural martial arts icons. So we're watching this movie, and I hadn't seen it for a few years, and I started thinking about this interview Bruce Lee gave, where he said, "I want to be remembered as an actor, not a star, man." But as a great actor, I would love it if people would say, "Hey, man, you're a really great actor." That would make my day. So I'm watching this, focusing on Bruce Lee's acting. No, not the action, not the fight choreography, you know, which I love. It's great, it's fun, but the acting. And I'm looking at Bruce Lee's performance, and I watched it in the original Cantonese for the first time, because I'd always seen it dubbed over into English. So I watched it in Cantonese with English subtitles. I don't speak Cantonese. I know I can understand a lot of Mandarin, but not Cantonese. So I'm watching this, and I realize, like, the gravity in Bruce's voice. There's the emotion. He's conveying one single thing, which is fury. It's in the name of the movie. This rage, this unbridled rage, and you can feel it, and it's palpable. And he's like this human avatar of rage and anger and just unfettered emotion. And it's powerful. And I thought, you know what? Bruce was a good actor. He really was. And it's one thing that he didn't get enough credit for, because, you know, his fans today are always arguing about how good Bruce was as a martial artist. Was he a good fighter? Was he not? And barely anybody's talking about how good the dude was at acting. I mean, as a child actor, as a kid, Bruce was a good actor, man. But yeah, very, very fascinating performance there. So thank you for the question, Grandmaster Jesse. If you don't know Grandmaster Jesse of Mexican Martial Arts, please go check him out. It's one of my favorite channels, one of the greatest things on the internet. All right, what else do we have? My thoughts on Lyoto Machida's style to modernize karate. You mean to train in the sport of mixed martial arts, to cross-train in boxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and everything else that you need to do to be a good mixed martial artist? I think that's great, and everybody should do it if they're planning on being a cage fighter. That probably sounded like an oversimplification, but that's exactly what he does. That's it. You know, he cross-trains and everything so that he can use his karate skills in the context of mixed martial arts. It's pretty simple. We got a super chat from Dr. Sick. Thank you very much. He says, size versus skill. Both in their prime. Damian Maia versus Shaq. You mean Shaquille O'Neal? In MMA, what do I think? Now, my first thought is Shaquille O'Neal, not a fighter, but he's a huge, huge athlete. Just massive, massively strong. Damian Maia, one of the best jiu-jitsu guys for mixed martial arts. I think Damian Maia could figure it out, but man, just the sheer size and strength and athleticism would definitely give him some problems, some unique problems he's probably never faced before. But yeah, I think Damian Maia could eke out a win. What are my thoughts on the Gogo Plata? I love it. I love it. I use it fairly frequently. It's not a move I end up teaching that often because a lot of people are just not very, very physically adept at moving their body in that specific way. But I love it. I use it. Probably the most common position I use the Gogo Plata from is from mount rather than guard. I find in guard, I mean, I do set it up guard sometimes. That is one of my favorite setups, either rubber guard or a shoulder pin on the side. Some people give that shoulder pin a different name. Eddie Bravo used to call it the London position before he formally removed it from his 10th planet system. But anyway, yeah, I love Gogo Platas, but they're not for everybody. And if I'm fighting a really big guy, that's going to be on the bottom of my to-do list as far as submissions go. But for somebody close to my size or smaller, yeah, Gogo Platas all day. I enjoy that move. Also, if you're using Gogo Plata from mount and you are failing that or they're bucking you off or something, you can slide right into an arm bar. So it's a nice low-risk way to use it. Master Wong versus Captain Krav Maga. Man, that's a video I would love to see. I would love to see it. The amount of groin kicks would just make your groin explode if that ever happened. Scott McGregor sends in a super chat. Thank you very much. He says, you once mentioned you watch strongmen sometimes. Do you have a favorite competitor? I think they'd be more dangerous than Shaq. Yeah, probably. Man, that's a good question. Do I have a favorite competitor? You know, I don't think I do. Generally, if I watch a strongman competition, it's something I just put and look and I don't pay attention to the names too much or follow the sport super closely. It's mostly something I look at and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. These guys are big and strong and dedicated to their sport and their craft, and they're really good at it, and that's inspiring. Rather than, yeah, I could probably name like 3 or 4 different professional strongmen, and how do I pick? How would they be more dangerous than Shaq in a fight? Probably, because these guys. Yeah, these guys are a lot stronger, quite frankly. Is the world ready for tombstone piledrivers in the cage? The piledriver, if you do not know, is the one throw. It is illegal in the sport of mixed martial arts. You can't do it. So when the rules of MMA say no spiking an opponent on the head, it's referring specifically to the piledriver. I've seen it happen once in the UFC. I've seen it happen once in a local level professional fight where dude shot in for a double leg takedown. The top guy sprawled, picked up the hips, and then dumped him on the head. In both cases, the fight was stopped and the offending fighter was issued a foul. It would be really interesting to see what would happen if that was legal, but at the same time, it would probably end up with some dudes getting paralyzed below the neck, so maybe not. After I hit 1 million subscribers, would I quit my job and be a full-time YouTuber instead? No. No. A full-time YouTube... What the heck would I make YouTube videos about, man? My YouTube channel, the Ramsey Dewey channel, is about Ramsey Dewey. And it's about my life and what I do. And the overwhelming majority of what I do is about... It's coaching. It's coaching the sport of mixed martial arts. So, yeah, man. What about a German suplex? That's perfectly legal in the sport of MMA. Yeah, you will see that technique. I love it. I use it. I was teaching it the other day. Super chat from Joe Anderson. Who would destroy the nut better, a nutcracker or Master Wong? You just wrote that in because you wanted to hear me say that out loud with my voice, didn't you? A nutcracker or Master Wong? Well, if you mean by a nutcracker a inanimate object... Oh man, now I'm picturing Master Wong with a nutcracker. Oh man, if he hasn't made a video about that, total missed opportunity, Master Wong. You can thank... Oh, what was his name again? Joe Anderson. Master Wong, you can thank Joe Anderson for that idea. That video will get you 1 million views. I mean, I could make that video. It might get a few thousand people. Would be, that's very uncharacteristic of Ramsey Dewey to make a video like that. But if Master Wong did it, people would be like, this is the most Master Wong video ever. I love it. So Master Wong, please make that video where you teach how to defend yourself with a nutcracker, with an actual nutcracker for the streets. I would watch that. Man, if Master Wong made that video, I would actually subscribe to his channel. Do it, man. Do it! What are my thoughts on randomly taking in 0 calories for 24 hours? Fasting for 24 hours? Don't do it randomly. If you fast, have a reason for it. Have a good reason. Like, I fast for religious reasons once a month for 24 hours. And if you have a good reason, religious, physical, etc., and you understand why you're doing it, what it's for, and it gives you the result you want, great. If you're just going hungry for a day for no other reason than randomness, what's that going to teach you? What's that going to accomplish? That's a missed opportunity. Question from Drag700. Ramsey, how do I increase and preserve the longevity of my boxing, kickboxing career if I compete in amateur fights and potentially in bigger competitions? The biggest thing is light sparring. Avoid heavy sparring. If you're competing already, you already have the context of experience of what a fight is, what getting hit hard feels like, how you react in those situations, how other people react when you hit them, etc. So you don't need to repeat that experience ad nauseum. If you want the longest career possible, light sparring is going to allow you to do that. Next question. Can you get away? Como se dice eso? Says, do you think you can get away with not having world-class teammates to train and spar with, but instead having an awesome coach and average teammates? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It is great if you have some world beaters there who can, just beat you any way they want. That's great. Okay. But you need different types of training partners. You need people that you can... It's like weights, man. You need different sizes of weights. You got to start with the little ones and then work your way up to the bigger ones and work your way up to the biggest ones. Right? It's the same thing with fighting technique, etc. Because if you're just getting trounced every time you train, this reinforces some very negative ideas in your mind, some very negative thought processes. It's a bad feedback loop, man. If you, on the other hand, have people where you can experiment with, you can play with them, you can You know, the low-level guys really are your most important training partners. A lot of people don't know this, but they are. Think about it. Think about really any gym. Who's usually the best guy in the room? More often than not, it's the coach, it's the teacher, it's the black belt in charge. Not always, but a lot of the time, he's the best guy in the room. Why? Who does he spend most of his time training with? Other phenomenal black belts? Usually no. I mean, sometimes he'll go out there and roll with some other black belts, but most of the time he's with you guys. He's with a bunch of schmucks who are learning jujitsu or whatever the martial art is. And how's he so good? Well, because by training with the noobs over and over again, he's able to rep out all of these techniques under stress, under pressure, against live resisting people, giving him real feedback, and he's able to get an incredible number of repetitions of this stuff. That is much more valuable than a single roll against a guy who can just squash you and not let you do anything. Because if you're not doing anything, you're not learning much other than, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do the other. You got to focus on what you can do. I feel like I missed some cool questions here while I was answering that. Perrin Chan says, is a good coach one who has surpassed his students or one who is constantly improves with his students? A good coach is a guy who facilitates success in his athletes. That's it. How good of a fighter the coach is irrelevant. Are your fighters winning fights? Are the people you are coaching winning their fights? Are they succeeding in their sport? If so, you're probably doing a good job at coaching. If not, then you need to improve as a coach. That's it. It has nothing to do with how good of a fighter you are. You might be the best man on the mat there. But if that's what you're focusing on the wrong thing as a coach. If you're a competitor, if you're a fighter, great, focus on being the best guy there. But if you're a coach, focus on helping those guys win. That's it. Do I find your dancing background has in any way helped you in your fighting career? Mr. King of Negativity asks. If you don't know, I have a degree in modern dance, a college degree in modern dance. I studied contemporary dance, modern dance, ballet. I danced professionally in 2 different ballet companies. I danced professionally in several different modern companies. And I also had a career as a cage fighter and a kickboxer. Did it have direct crossover to my specific career? No! Because I did everything wrong in my career and I rushed through it. And yeah, it didn't go so great. Ex post facto, on the other hand, it's had a dramatic effect on coaching and teaching. So I use a lot of principles from dance as a coach and as a teacher. Chilling Cat says, is Kaju Kenbo legit? Kaju Kenbo, it is a system combining karate, judo, Kenpo, and I don't know. I've done a few videos with my friend Angelo Ferrer. He's got a much lesser known channel, but go check it out. I think his channel is called Social Jello, Gelo. Social Jello with Angelo. He's got a podcast. It's all about Kaju Kenbo. He's got a Kaju Kenbo podcast. He's interviewed, some big names in the field of Kaju Kenbo. I've trained with him. He's come over here. He lives in Japan. He's trained with me here in Shanghai. We've had a lot of discussions about this. Is a martial art legit? It's as legitimate as the people practicing it. That's it. Is Angelo legit? Yeah, absolutely. Is his Kaju Kenbo legit? Sure, absolutely. Are there probably people out there under the banner of Kaju Kenbo who suck and are McDojos and liars and frauds? Probably. And you'll find that with everybody else too. Super chat from KDS. Thank you very much. He says, it's my brother's birthday and we are big fans. Would love a happy birthday for my big brother Sammy. Absolutely. Sammy, happy birthday to you. I would sing you happy birthday, but then this video would get demonetized because that song is copyrighted. So let me sing you a royalty-free, copyright-free happy birthday song. Happy, happy birthday, Sammy dear. Happy days will come to you all year. If I had one wish, then it would be a happy, happy birthday to you from me. There you go. Now we won't get demonetized. Royalty-free songs for the win. But seriously, the happy birthday song, the regular one everybody knows, that one will get you demonetized. You can't sing it. You can't put it in a movie without paying royalties to the people who own the copyright of that song. All right, what else do we have? What is my favorite style to use in a fight? Lord Squat says, my favorite style. Styles don't exist, man. They don't exist in my mind. I mean, I guess they exist out there in the real world. They're constructs. People think about them all the time. But to me, styles don't exist. There's fighting. There are fighting techniques. There are certain fighting techniques I really enjoy using. There are certain pathways of movement that I enjoy using, but styles are an illusion, man. Am I going to be Santa this year too? I played Santa for a bunch of grade school kids earlier, back in December, Christmas time. Will I do it also in this coming December of 2022? Maybe. We'll see. Mr. King of Negativity asks, have I ever considered making a video focused on your religion and how it relates to your life and career? I probably made about 100 videos where I talk about my religion, my beliefs, etc., etc. They're all over the channel. I should probably put them in a playlist because I do get questions about this sort of thing quite a bit. So maybe I'll collect those in a playlist, then I can just link you to them. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that some people appreciate that stuff. As with all my videos of religious themes, those are never monetized because I don't believe in priestcraft, which is profiting from preaching the word, if you will. Scott McGregor says, wait, the happy birthday song isn't copyrighted. It's from the 19th century. You should look that up, my friend. You should look that up. You might be surprised. Perrin Chan asked this question. This is something I think about a lot, to be honest. Very serious question. He says, how could Batman balance training and his job? Or is he like a farmer where the job keeps him fit? That's a great question, man. And there are a lot of takes on this in the comics and in the movies. And I've thought about making a video about this because this would be very interesting. Canonically, Batman is supposed to be a master of a whole bunch of different martial arts styles, right? And he's supposed to be one of the best hand-to-hand combatants in the DC universe. And he's the guy that the other Justice League members go to train with in their hand-to-hand combat. In spite of the fact that they have superpowers, they still go to Batman to learn how to fight because he's just the best at it. But where does he get the time to train, man? I mean, we understand Batman went out when he was younger and he trained before he was Batman, before he put on the costume. He did a bunch of training in a bunch of styles, but how does he keep it up? Does he set apart few hours every day to train? Or is it just the experience he gets beating up thugs out on the streets? So, that's a great question. And we do see a little bit of both of these concepts explained in some of the comics and the movies and so on. For example, what was it? That one with Ben Affleck with Batfleck. It showed this training montage where he's doing a bunch of CrossFit type of exercise and doing a bunch of what was he doing? Squats and tire flips and just a real bro workout, and not so much a fighting workout, but after I saw that, I thought, that kind of makes sense. If a guy like Batman really existed, he's getting a ton of fight experience out there on the streets. He's upkeeping it. He doesn't have to learn how to throw a punch and a kick all over again. He knows this stuff. It's internalized. And he's getting into fights constantly, so he is refining that. What does he really need to refine, though? Well, his strength. So it makes sense that in that movie Batman was focusing on strength training, and it was a pretty quick but super intense workout in order to upkeep his strength, because strength really is the precedent for athletic performance. Angel asks, Mr. Dewey, how good is your Spanish? It's okay, I guess. It's been like 22 years since I lived in a Spanish-speaking country, so it's not as fluid as it used to be, but I can speak Spanish. Puedo hablar castellano, español, lo que sea, lo que quieres llamarlo. Super chat from Sagat Master 4, another one, sweet. Batman, you need all levels of thugs to fight against to maximize your training. That's true, and Batman beats up all kinds of people, ranging from average street thugs to superhumans. So Batman, he's doing it right. He's got the people he can squash, he's got the people at his level, and he's got the people who can squash him. And with those three types of training partners, yeah, he gets those Batman-like gains. Excellent point, my friend. Joe Anderson sends in another super chat. More pain from a nut grab from Master Wong or a king crab? Ooh. Ooh. A king crab. You like an actual crab with the sharp little pinchers, man. Ooh. That's painful thinking about. I mean, if Master Wong's grabbing you, I mean, his hands are occupied, so you could at least punch him in the face or something. But if a crab attacks you, most likely that's going to be a surprise attack, because, I mean, crabs just don't come out of nowhere. I mean, what are you doing, lying on the beach or something, and a crab just walks over and climbs up your swimsuit and snips you by surprise? I mean, that's kind of terrifying if you think about it. You don't even know it's in there. Suddenly you feel some spiky little thing. Dude, that's like horror movie material there. Yikes. Um, Jay Andrews wants to point out that in the DC Comics, Wonder Woman actually is a superior fighter to Batman. Okay, that is true. She spent her entire life training to be a warrior since childhood, and she is superhuman, and yeah, and she's also lived a lot longer than Batman. She looks young, but Wonder Woman's pretty old if you think about it. All right, what other questions do we have? Have a fellow asking over and over and over and over again who would win at the UFC, Sean O'Malley or Bryce Mitchell. I don't know. My honest answer, I don't know. Not a very compelling or interesting answer. I know there are some channels out there like a lot of great fight commentary channels. Chael Sonnen, for example. I mean, he makes a living out of this, talking about fights like this. He'll make 5 videos before the fight happens and make it sound so interesting and spin a compelling narrative around it. And it's great, and I love those channels, but I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy who's gonna spin a narrative around that fight specifically. So my honest answer, I don't know. Sorry if it's disappointing. We have a super chat from MD Naimul Huda Imran. Apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, but he says, do you feel competing in a narrower rule set such as judo would best suit those who work full-time jobs if they want to excel as combat athletes? Hmm. Well, that's a good question. If you compete specifically in judo, you're going to get a lot better at judo. Okay? So if your goal is to maximize one skill set, you work a full-time job, maybe you don't want to be a cage fighter, and that's fine, but you want to be good at something. You want to be really good at something. Okay, great. Go learn judo, become a black belt at judo, be awesome at that, and be proud of it. Or go be the best boxer you can, or something like that. But at the same time, could you do that with mixed martial arts? Yeah. Do you know why? Because that's also its own unique sport, with its own unique set of challenges. When we train in a very specific style, let's take something like Taekwondo, for example, right? The most widely practiced martial art on planet Earth. It is Taekwondo. The World Taekwondo Federation brand specifically. Biggest martial arts organization on planet Earth. Okay? Let's say you train up to the black belt level. You're a pretty competent black belt. You know all the forms. Your kicks are pretty good. Your sparring's pretty good. Okay? How much better at Taekwondo are you going to get investing deeply and heavily into training in Taekwondo for an additional 5 to 10 years? You're going to get marginally better at that point. You might go from the point where you can beat all the colored belts to the point where you can start to beat other black belts or higher level black belts. But once you get up to that, I can beat higher level black belts point, how much better is an additional investment in training in Taekwondo going to make you? A little bit better at Taekwondo and not better at all at anything else. Okay, what if we train up to the black belt level in Taekwondo, where we can beat all the colored belts, beat some of the black belts, etc. in Taekwondo, and then instead of investing 10 additional years into Taekwondo, we invest those 10 additional years into boxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all these other things, where with, let's say, 2 years of training, we can develop a pretty competent skill set in grappling and striking and tactics and so on. And we add those to that black belt level Taekwondo. Then what kind of fighter are we? We're a guy who can kick really well and beat a large percentage of Taekwondo guys, but guess what else? Now we can beat them even better, and now we can compete against boxers, and now we can compete against wrestlers, and now we can compete against all kinds of different martial artists. Why? Because we got more bang for our buck. Think about strength training for a minute. In lifting, we have different classifications. We've got beginners who know absolutely nothing about lifting. Then we've got the novices who've, they've learned the form. They've learned how not to injure themselves with the lifts, but they're not super strong yet. And then we have the intermediate guys who've started to build up some muscle, right? They've got those newbie gains down. And then we've got the advanced lifters who've spent a few additional years to get really strong. But then there's another level, the elite level. The guys who are exceptional. Okay, what's the difference between an advanced lifter and an elite lifter? As far as weights on the bar, sometimes it's not even that much. Because once you get up to that advanced level, to get up to the elite level, to add an extra plate on the bar, that can be a full-time job just to get that much. What if you wanted to be an advanced lifter who also knew jiu-jitsu? Well, you might have to put that elite lifter status on the back burner and invest that time instead into training in jiu-jitsu. Right? So you got to pick your battles. We can't be elite at everything, but by being pretty good at a lot of things, guess what we can do? We can become exceptional mixed martial artists. One of our friends, Chitrock, says, the other day I put on your video about Tai Chi to help my mom go to sleep. She hates fighting in general. What was this? NVMMMA. Interesting. Did it work? Great. Super chat from Joe Anderson. Man, Joe Anderson with all the super chats. What were your thoughts on the Nunes versus Pena fight? The Nunes versus Pena fight. Man, it's been a while since I saw that one. I'm having difficulty remembering exactly what happened. I mean, I guess I thought, yeah, it was okay. And there wasn't anything in particular that stood out in my memory like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. It was like, okay, this is a fight. This happened, this happened, this happened. Oh, man. Sorry to give you a very boring answer to your super chat. I don't know. It's just been too long since I saw it. I would have to rewatch that one. Maybe I'll do a video on that. We'll see. We'll see. A retrospective video on my thoughts on that fight. Sometimes you can... I don't want to say it was a forgettable fight. I mean, it wasn't. It was a perfectly fine fight. But, you know, sometimes certain fights just have a really memorable factor to them. And I don't know. For me, it wasn't really one of them. I suppose for some people it was because we have this fairly long-standing champion trying to defend her title, and yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't get very emotionally invested in that one. It's Gobi says, I think Kevin Lee will be Jake Paul's first MMA fight at Eagle FC, and it will, of course, be at a weight Jake can make. Kevin Lee versus Jake Paul in an MMA fight. Ooh. Oh, if that happens, you know who's going to have a heyday with that? Chael Sonnen, man. He is going to tell all of us, Uncle Chael's going to tell all of us exactly how Kevin Lee fits into all of this. We will finally get the answer about how Kevin Lee fits into all of this. So I'm kind of hoping that actually plays out the way you painted it. So, for nothing else, Chael's reactions and predictions. Daryl Wheaton says, what's my opinion on ridge hands? The best way to utilize it, not too popular out there on the channels. A ridge hand, boom, striking with the ridge of your hand, right? You know, I used to use ridge hands a lot when I was training in Taekwondo and karate. And when we would do empty-handed fighting, I would use a lot, and I felt like it was a good weapon. And I would even tell people, you know, instead of swinging the arm like this to try to generate a bunch of power, throw it like a straight punch at first and then loop it around the side, and that you know, drop your hip into it. You can generate a lot more power and land it more frequently that way. I used to do a lot of breaking demos with the ridge hand. One thing that was really eye-opening to me was attempting a breaking demo not on wood or on bricks, but with a pumpkin. So for some reason I thought a pumpkin would be easier to break. So I was doing this breaking demo and I thought the thing would just explode when I hit it. And I threw the hardest ridge hand I ever could on just a pumpkin about that big, a little bigger than a human head, but pretty solid pumpkin. And I whacked the thing and thunk, there was a big old dent in the thing. It didn't explode, but just a big old chopped dent in the side, caved in a little bit. And it hurt my hand. That was like the worst hand injury I ever had in a breaking demo from breaking a pumpkin with a ridge hand. And I started thinking, a pumpkin, in many ways, it has a lot more in common with hitting a human head than a board. Because if you hit a board the right way, it's going to snap, right? And it's not going to hit you back the same way a human skull will. There's some elastic recoil in there. There's some flexibility to there. There's some toughness, not rigidity, but toughness to a pumpkin or to human flesh that there isn't to a brick or a board, right? So when I hit that thing and I went part of the way through, the rest of that solid object, the rest of that force bounced back into my hand. So that got me to start rethinking the ridge hand. There's an old adage in traditional martial arts, hard weapons, and this is a hard weapon. It's a bony little ridge. It fits into small places, like the neck. If somebody's tucking their neck here, yeah, you can chop that down. Hard weapons against soft targets. Here's a soft target. Here's a hard weapon. Soft weapons against hard targets. Here's a hard target. Here's a soft weapon. So, yeah, man, there's a time and a place for the ridge hand, and the skull, not it. The softer, squishy stuff on the neck, yeah. But that's going to take some accuracy, and it's going to take some setups, like that setup I showed you before. Bring it straight, and then hook it, and then drop the hip. And then you can fit ridge hands into tiny little places. But, man, I find, since I started competing in mixed martial arts, I just threw the ridge hand out the window, specifically because when you wrap your hands up with tape and you put on gloves, a closed fist becomes a superior weapon in every single way to an open hand. It does. Barehanded, it's a different story depending on how you've conditioned your hands. All right, we got another super chat from Joe Anderson. Oh, man. Dust, Detroit Urban Survival Training versus Master Wong. Who has the best technique for the streets? Oh, man. The sadistic part of me would just absolutely love to see both of those guys out on the streets for real, attempting their techniques for real against real street thugs. They would die. They would get killed. They would get massacred. They would get executed. But the sadistic part of me would want to see that play out. I don't wish ill upon them, but it would be very fascinating if self-defense instructors were forced to defend themselves with their actual techniques on the streets in those real situations. Man, the poetic justice in that would be... It would be delicious until the reality of death set, and then we would all feel very bad and guilty about it. But who has the best techniques for the streets? You know, in one way, Master Wong's character, like his character, like he talks a big game, he's loud, he's overbearing, he's a little dude in real life, right? I mean, yeah, I guess he trains in martial arts, and I suppose he knows how to punch and kick and poke your eyes and kick the groin or whatever. But his persona is larger than life. And this could go two ways. This could attract unwanted attention to him. But at the same time, how do street fights start? They start with posturing. Posturing is the non-combative things. It's the talking. It's the puffing out your chest. All animals do this to some extent, right? Like you look at an angry dog or an angry cat when they feel threatened, what do? They puff themselves up to look bigger and more threatening, and they're like, "Argh." They make angry sounds to try to scare the other animals away to avoid a fight. And that's exactly what Master Wong does. So even though he's not explicitly teaching this in his videos, he is implicitly teaching you the art of posturing. And this does have some value in a street fight. Sometimes it will start a street fight and make it worse if the other guy is confident in his ability to kill you. And sometimes, if you're dealing with a less confident individual, it can get them to back down. So in a way, Master Wong may be teaching you the art of fighting without fighting. Dale, on the other hand, from Detroit Urban Survival. You know, I got a feeling the techniques he uses in real life are radically different from what he teaches on his channel. In fact, I know it. I listened to an interview the other day. I don't remember the dude's name, but he used to work for Dale's Detroit Urban Survival. What are they called? They're like two companies. There's the Detroit Urban Survival Training, which is where they teach their techniques online, and then there's the actual it's like personal protective services company where they're basically security guards for hire, bodyguards for hire, that sort of thing, where they patrol neighborhoods, where they call the police if there's trouble, where that sort of thing. It's a very different job. And what does Dale actually do on the job? He drives around looking for trouble, patrolling neighborhoods that he's hired to patrol. And if he sees a sign of trouble, he'll notify the police. That's a very different thing than getting out there and disarming dudes with baseball bats. So, and one of those things really is a more intelligent option to increase your survivability than the other. Stay out of harm's way versus put yourself in harm's way. One will ensure survival, the other will get you hurt. So I would love it if Dale, instead of teaching hand-to-hand combat techniques on his channel, would actually give more insight into what he actually does in personal protective services. I think that would be very interesting. It would probably be a lot more boring. I had a friend who was a professional bodyguard, and I interviewed him about that, and he said, dude, it's boring. Like, it's really boring. Like, he did bodyguard work for some famous celebrities and athletes and actresses and so on. And it sounds like a really exciting job, but it's not. You pretty much just stand there and you are a visual deterrent for the most part. And the most action a bodyguard usually sees is standing between people and their client and telling the people to back away, and it doesn't involve a whole lot of hand-to-hand combat most of the time. And if it does, you're a bad bodyguard. All right, Lord Squat sends in a super chat. How nervous were you going into your first fight? Not nervous at all, because I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know what a fight was, and I didn't know why I needed to be nervous, and so I wasn't nervous going in. And I got lit up. My second fight, I was a lot more nervous, because I knew what a fight was. I had the context of experience. If you are not experiencing nerves and anxiety going into a fight, you either A, don't know what a fight is, and you're in for a rude awakening, or you're fighting a schmuck that you know you can squash and control any way you want. And you're a bully. So, yeah. Paul Polito says it right. Security should be dull work, or you're probably not doing it right. True. True, man. Man, there are tons of stories from bouncers on the internet, and the bad ones will tell you about their thousands of bar fights that they got into, and the good ones will tell you about how they de-escalated situations and resolved conflicts without hurting people. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to go because I got some stuff to do this afternoon. It's been awesome chatting with you and answering your questions. Thank you very much for tuning in for this edition of Q&A with the Coach live. But I'm going to have to skedaddle. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.